Good morning and welcome to Business Morning here on Channels Television. We'll start off by saying, may the soul of the Queen rest in peace. We join the United Kingdom and, of course, the world and celebrate the life and times of Queen Elizabeth II. That's how we start off the show this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's go to Friday's business, starting with global oil prices. Prices rose on Friday as investors considered Russia's threat to halt oil and gas exports to some buyers. But crude was set for a second weekly decline as central banks' aggressive rate hikes and China's COVID-19 curbs weighed on demand. Brent crude futures rose 22 cents to $89.37 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures climbed 10 cents to $83.64 a barrel. The decline was bench-checked by underlying supply tightness and Russia's threat to cut oil flows to any country that backs a price cap on its crude, a small output cut by OPEC Plus, and weaker outlook for U.S. oil production growth. For now, curbs are tightening in China. The city of Chengdu on Thursday extended a lockdown for most of its more than 21 million residents, while millions more in other parts of China were urged not to travel during upcoming holidays. Well, still staying in Western European Union countries, energy ministers are meeting today to search for solutions for a long list of possible measures to shield citizens from sky-high energy prices as winter approaches. The basis for the talks is a set of proposals made by EU President. Among them are a price cap on Russian gas, the windfall levy on non-gas power plants, and a block-wide cut in electricity demand, emergency credit lines for power firms facing soaring collateral requirements. EU diplomats countries appear broadly supportive of measures to provide liquidity for companies, and some had also backed curbing power demand. Other proposals were more divisive. The price cap on Russian gas has so far failed to win support among a majority of countries, with some questioning how it would help curb prices given the low gas volumes Moscow is now sending to Europe. EU countries are not expected to approve any policies today, but rather give a signal to Brussels about which options have enough support to be turned into final proposals. Emergency EU laws are usually passed by a majority of countries, although some may require unanimous approval. In Nigeria, the total trade stood at 12.8 billion naira in the second quarter of this year, and that's according to the National Bureau of Statistics. This is lower than the value recorded in the first quarter of 2022, which was about 13 billion naira, but higher than the value recorded in corresponding period of 2021. That was at about 9.7 billion naira. MBS also said that total exports were about 7.4 billion naira, of which re-exports stood at 9.63 billion, while total imports stood at about 5.4 billion naira. Well, still in Nigeria, Flour Mills of Nigeria PLC has announced a dividend payment of 12 naira 15 kobo per 550 kobo ordinary shares for the financial year ended 31st of March 2022. At the 62nd Annual General Meeting in Lagos, the chairman of FMN PLC was represented by the vice chairman, Mr. Paul Bedebo, and said that the food processing company has a strategic goal of feeding Africa and is taking steps in that direction. The company also recorded 339.6 billion naira's revenue in the first quarter of this year.
Taking stock of the previous business year and delivering value to shareholders is the crux of discussions at the 62nd Annual General Meeting of Flour Mills of Nigeria PLC, which is hybrid. Only 16 shareholders are physically present. Good news is in, as the company declares its dividend.
The dividend be paid on Thursday, 8th September 2022, to shareholders registered in the books of the company at the close of business on Friday, the 12th August 2022. The proposed dividend amounts to 2.15 naira per ordinary share of 50 kobo.
Its business record appears impressive, with 339.6 billion naira in revenue in the first quarter of 2022, an increase of 45.3% from 233.7 billion naira in the first quarter of 2021. It also recorded a profit before tax of 39.2 billion naira compared to 37.23 billion naira in 2021, while profit for the year is 28 billion naira. Most shareholders are happy about this progress.
Operating profits grew from 52 billion naira to 65.5 billion naira in the year under review. I observe an improved performance in the year under review because all the indices are in progression. I want to seize this opportunity to give kudos to the board and the management team for their efforts and implore them to do more.
The company also seeks to borrow 200 billion naira to fund the business more. The launch of Santi Brown Sugar and the acquisition of 71.69% in Honeywell flour mills is part of the growth trajectory.
Expansion into the sub-region and into the continent, we need to have our full footprints there also. So the acquisition, is quite strategic, and it will help us to be able to deliver what we promise our shareholders.
With 5 directors also re-elected at this meeting, Flour Mills of Nigeria PLC says despite the challenging socio-economic environment, the company will continue to deliver a strong business performance with resilience and operational excellence.
Well, I guess along that line, we're talking about agricultural development, but now from the perspective of the capital markets, we know that the stockbrokers are having their meeting in Edo State, and they want to discuss how a capital market can help in agricultural development. We have the president of Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers, Mr. Oluwole Adeosun, joining us now from Benin. Good morning, Mr. Adeosun. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers on this program, broadcasting from Benin,
all right,
the capital city of Edo State. Great.
So you're discussing how capital markets can contribute. I think you've been contributing, but how you can and expand that contribution to the developments of agriculture in the country. What are your strategies? What is your focus?
Well, the focus of the Institute with regards to agricultural development is to use our platform as capital market professionals to highlight the importance of the agricultural sector in the Nigerian economy and seek for ways of directing attention, more attention at the agricultural sector. Because come to look at it, the agricultural sector provides employment for 35% of the workers in Nigeria, of the population. They are engaged in agriculture. 35% of our population engaged in agriculture. And also, agriculture contributes 25% to the gross domestic product of Nigeria. So that is quite significant. Even with the advent of oil and the revenue generated from the oil sector, the agricultural sector still makes up a significant portion of the GDP, and it's an area to focus attention to. Even in these days of dwindling foreign exchange, we can generate quite a lot from vegetation that the Almighty God had given the country, very good, productive agricultural land that can be explored to increase output, generate, scale up the capacity, and even earn foreign exchange. That is why we are focusing on it. And as a result of that, we are trying to explore the nexus between the agricultural sector and the capital market as drivers of employment generation and wealth creation. That is the significance of the conference and part of the strategies that we're adopting towards directing the attention of all the stakeholders that are involved, that should be involved, particularly the government that provides the enabling environment, and also the stakeholders, the financiers, the providers of capital, to get involved in the agricultural sector and boost the economy of Nigeria.
Okay,
Thank you.
So I know you would agree with me that in Nigeria we've had a lot of conversations about a lot of developmental issues. So are you working directly with the farmers? Are you working with those involved in the value chain of agricultural produce production or adding value? Or who are you working with? How do we take this from your conference venue to the streets, to the farm, to the people?
Okay, thank you. Well, from the conference, we have several participants, several stakeholders are involved in the conference. It is not just only for the stockbrokers alone. In the conference, we have the state government, the state government being represented. We have the federal government being represented through the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources. We have also the other stakeholders involved in the agricultural value chain. We have those that own firms, that own farms, that have also involved in various levels in the agricultural value chain. We have quoted companies in Nigeria that are in the agricultural sector that are in this conference, and also those that are involved as facilitators in the agricultural chain, financiers in the agricultural chain. We have banks, at least 3 or 4 banks that are significantly involved in financing agriculture, involved with us in this conference. We have Polaris Bank, we have Sterling Bank, majorly operating. They are part of this conference and they are contributing a lot. So the essence is to bring in the stakeholders to let us explore the more. We have regulators in the capital market here. The Director General of the Security and Exchange Commission is here. The executive commissioners of the Security and Exchange Commission, they are here. Collect all of the exchanges, all of the securities exchanges in Nigeria, they are also here. The commodities exchanges are here. The equity exchanges, they are here. So all of the critical stakeholders, the connection is that when we are able to get all of these critical stakeholders in the value chain, in the financing part, in the productive part, all coming together, we are exploiting means, discussing means to chart a way forward and be able to assist others that want to invest in the agricultural sector, providing them the enabling environment, providing them the facilities, providing them the funding and the possibility of getting access to funding, which is just one of the factors of production. Other factors of production like land, entrepreneurial skill, which those people have, and their labor, which advance. All of them coming together, we assist in moving the agricultural sector forward significantly. That is the essence.
All right. President of Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers, Mr. Oluwole Adeosun, we wish you a successful deliberations and we'll be expecting to see the results of your deliberations.
Of course, you will see it very soon because in Edo State, the choice of coming to Edo State, number one, is the fact that Edo State is a state that has carved a niche for itself in the agricultural sector. And in this state, the largest companies in the agricultural sector come on the escape.
All right, Mr. Adeosun. All right, Mr. Adeosun. We do have conversations on this that will be coming up in future. Thank you so much. And I have a great meeting right there in Edo State. Okay, so after the production, of course, we have to get the products to the consumers. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Providing transit between e-commerce businesses and customers is a booming business, not just in Nigeria, but the world now. In fact, as of 2018 in Nigeria, the logistics and supply chain sector was estimated to worth 250 billion naira. And it was worth half of that the year before. So in a year, it was 50% higher. One of the players in the industry will be talking to us now is the managing director of Red Star Express Group, Mr. Babura Awalu. And he's joining us here in the studio. Good to have you in the studio, Mr. Awalu. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. And nice to have you here.
Good to have you. Yes. So we're just talking to the stockbrokers now. They are talking about, you know, contributing to the development of agriculture. But we do know that after the agricultural produce at the farm or even at the production stage, we have to get it to the consumers. Absolutely. Now, that's where you come in, logistics and supply chain. How active is that industry at this time?
Thank you very much for having me. The logistics industry is very active, barring other constraints that abound. I would say, yes, we are faring not badly, but there are a lot of hitches here and there. But I think we can do better.
So we know that times are harsh, economic times are harsh, not just Nigeria, everywhere in the world at this time. How much of a hit has the industry received? We know during the pandemic, I think your business boosted because a lot of people were indoors or they couldn't move, so they had to get logistics and get things around. But how has inflation, cost of living, how has that affected you now?
The current economic realities that is affecting Nigerian business is not only on the logistics side. If you ask me, it affects almost every business that we have around. You are aware about the insecurity that we have in the Northwest, the insecurity issue that we have in the South, East, and in the Northwest. And we have this issue of harder farmer conflicts that are hindering our movements. Resa Express is operating in all the ecosystem of logistics. That is to say, we serve our customers by air, by road, and we are involved in the clearing and forwarding of the items and movement of items from the farm to the users. So the infrastructure issue is also another constraint. The roads are not what they are supposed to be. Even coming to channels this morning, the roads that I see here is not is the typical roads that we see in Nigeria. Resa Express, for example, has about more than 100 trailers that are traversing Nigeria across. And you could imagine, linking up and the cost of maintenance, the cost of servicing, and the cost of general maintenance of those items.
So do you have to pass this to your customers? The high cost of maintenance.
Our customers are also Nigerians. They understand this. They are part of us. So when we talk, we engage them from time to time. We engage them. We share ideas. We show them the reality of what is happening, and they agree with us. So sometimes we push what we can to the customer, but not everything.
Yeah, because if not, then you lose them. But there's this conversation that federal governments and regulatory bodies are stalling cargo business, especially when it has to do with fruits going outside the country. How true is that?
Well, I cannot agree less. You see, agri sector used to be the mainstay of the Nigerian economy, contributing more than 70% of the Nigerian workforce, and contributing more than 30% of the GDP. When you talk about government and hindering issues, we will have to look at how is it being done in other climes. I think there is something fundamentally missing. That is domestic export warehouse terminal. Now, this is the standard that you see when you go out of Nigeria, even in some neighboring West African countries. Now, some of the challenges that we are having there are issues of poor packaging, poor labeling, and poor storage facilities and preservatives. So the domestic export warehouse terminal is a one-stop shop that address all these issues that I have mentioned. It is a place where the regulators, agencies, and the exporters will meet, and all issues around export issues will be resolved quickly and addressed so that issues can progress.
So paint a picture of this warehouse terminal you're talking about. Who is supposed to run it? Like, where would be a most convenient location? How are people supposed to participate in it? Just help us paint a picture of
at the exits, that is at the ports, at the airports, at the seaports, all the ports that where we are exporting our items, that is where the domestic export warehouse terminal should be. And like I said, all the regulatory bodies are there, warehoused in one room, so that the processes can be done efficiently and quickly, so that these items can... you know, one advantage that if we get this in right, the economy will be diversified. And it will lead to attract investments. It has been done in the West African countries. I don't want to mention names.
So what do you think is stopping us? Is it the skill? Is it the funding? Is it the initiative? I don't think it's the initiative. We have great ideas in this country.
What is stopping us? I think the regulations and maybe disagreements here and there. I do not have the much details. But I think there was an initiative, there was a discussion around this, for this to happen before. We don't know why the thing was stalled, but there was discussion around this thing before.
What about the use of technology? We know today's world is a technology world.
Absolutely.
How much has that been inculcated into the running of the supply chain?
So you see, for example, this is where my company stands out, Resa Express. This year we are going to celebrate 3 decades of operations. And you see, take for example, in the last 2 years, we went to the market as a PLC, we generated funds, and part of what we did with the fund was to make sure that the technology is changed. As I'm taking to you now, we have a new technology that address pickup and deliveries, logistics management software, and a complete new ERP that will change the tide of so many things that we are doing and the industry as well.
So how do we get more participation, you know, in this logistics? We know that when there's more supply, then at least it will go around, and then especially attracting the youths who have those, you know, those ICT skills of these days.
Enabling environment, the right regulations. So if we have the combination of these two, actually you will see a lot of participants in this industry.
All right, we have to thank you so much, Mr. Babura Awalu, the Managing Director of Red Star Express Group, for sharing your time with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
We do hope that that warehouse terminal would, because we're looking for how to boost FX supply in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
So we are talking about making exports.
We are suffering, honestly, on those
easy
sides.
and attractive.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back from that break, we have the Africarribean Trade Project. We'll find out what it is after the break. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. You're welcome back. The Africarribean Trade and Investment Forum has ended, and Channels Television correspondent Chris Williams was there, gave us a lot of information and details of what happened. Now let's follow up on some of the actionable plans from that forum. We have Mrs. Moji Hopono Wusu. She's the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Woodhull Capital Limited. She was there and now joins us to tell us her experience and some of those lessons learned from that. Good morning, Mrs. Wusu. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
So how was your experience there at the summit?
It was a very interesting, very educative, informative session. We had the coming together of various businesses from the African continent and the Caribbean continent coming together to discuss areas of collaboration. The whole idea of the summit was to institutionalize the relationship between African businesses and the Caribbean businesses. And we had a plethora of various businesses come together to discuss actionable points, as you made mention earlier, how we can do things together, how we can do practical things together, and how to get on with getting on with it. I'm not just making promises, as forums are often known to do in conferences, but how we can get on with some of the issues that we discussed in the 3-day summit.
So for you, what are some of those actionable plans you went away with?
I think for us and a lot of the African businesses that were there, it was just informative to just know the wealth of things that, the wealth of business opportunities, and we're deeply in trade and investment opportunities. The conference provided us with a platform to engage with businesses in the Caribbean. We sat down and discussed how to unlock financing gaps. We sat down and discussed how to bridge some of the supply chain issues that we're seeing in the global context. We had climate on our mind. We looked at our various agreements that would be signed and the various arbitration if need be. These are things that concern businesses. We had a powerful delegation of African businesses going there on the platforms, discussing things and issues like logistics, shipping, trying to find opportunities where African businesses can plug in Caribbean businesses in the CARICOM region. We discussed everything from trade finance, investment. My firm particularly, we engaged with some legal firms to help bridge the credit risk insurance issues that we have in international funding, and how some of the law firms or the asset managers there can help us engage properly and find solutions that are relevant to African businesses, African financial institutions, African sovereigns, and looking at the Caribbean as a region for solutions, particularly in financing.
Well, I hope some of those attractions will also be the way of Nigeria, so we don't take all the investments there, but also remember that we need investments back home.
And absolutely, we do need investments back home, and we need to look at other regions apart from our traditional regions of the West, and looking at solutions coming from the Caribbean, funding solutions. There's a lot of funds parked in those regions that are directed into the West. And we're trying to see how to unlock some of that funding that will then direct the funding into Africa, and particularly into Nigeria. So yes, absolutely. We went there with the mindset. How do we get investments flowing into Africa, particularly into Nigeria? How do our businesses unlock some of the funds that are parked there, and directing them, for example, into our oil and gas industry, helping solve some of the FX liquidity issues, some of the insurance that we're talking about with the Caribbean countries would actually help unlock that, because if you can credit risk insure a lot of your transactions, you'd find that it would lead to an increased traffic in financing.
All right, I do know that one of the areas of conversation was also agribusiness and food security. Yeah, what are some of the findings from there?
Yes, so of course, as you know, the conference was in the Barbados, and they're huge exporters of sugarcane, for example, and finding how we can export some of the refined products, export them from the Caribbean into Africa, rather than engaging with the West again, establishing new trade partners for the Caribbean, particularly in agricultural products, and vice versa, and from the African continent into the Caribbean. One of the issues that was discussed hugely was the cost of logistics, where they bring them from halfway across the world from other climes. And we're trying to see how logistics links, particularly we discussed airlines, direct airlines between African countries, Nigeria. I was speaking to some of the gentlemen in the conference who are looking at establishing an airline direct flights from Nigeria into Barbados, into some of the CARICOM countries. And I find that if we're able to unlock the logistics issues, the difficulties where you don't have to fly into America or into Europe to get into the Caribbean, you'd find then that some of the food exportation issues would be identified. The other thing that we discussed, which was very important and very enlightening for me, was the licensing, and saying that between the African and the Caribbean continents, we find that if we're able to identify where the issues are in licensing, in removing some bottlenecks, particularly for agricultural products, ensuring that the standards that are acceptable to us are established, which would help with the flow of agricultural products between Africa and the Caribbean.
And then I see that there was the creation of the Africa Caribbean Business Council. also one of the successes from there. Any idea how this is going to work? How can Nigerians participate? Was that exposed there?
Yes, so the council was set up, obviously, the first initiative was signed on the 7th of September 2021, and the 3-day conference actually tried to actualize some of the deliverables from that. And so the council was set up. Nigerians are very encouraged to get in touch with that council. I think the information we brought out shortly within the communique, engage with them, find out the different opportunities for Nigerians, find out what we could be exporting to them to, obviously, as I said, mentioned earlier, that would help bridge the FX liquidity and ensure that we remain an exporting country. There's some of our products that may not be as needed in other or in our traditional Western trade partners. Identify some of those that will be needed in the Caribbean and vice versa, looking at establishing plants for some of their own raw materials in Nigeria, bridging and coming together to solve some of our infrastructural issues that would prevent some of that investment in coming in. So if we want to develop factories, for example, to process some of the raw agricultural products, we need to obviously ensure that we're having dialogues around some of our infrastructure. Power, for example, could be one of the hindering points why factories may not be established. And if we're engaging on that and ensuring that we're pointedly trying to address those problems so the business will flow from those regions, particularly in agriculture, the Business Council would identify the infrastructure shortfalls and that exist between the Caribbean continent and even in the African continent, and ensure that pressure is put on those governments to address those infrastructural gaps that are preventing investments from coming in.
Yeah, well, it would be very nice to have the council open conversation with some of our councils here, the Lagos State Council, the Abuja, you know, and have maybe an office or representation back here. You know, I think because Nigerians, I do know a lot of people want to seize the opportunity, but if they are not reachable, then that might make it difficult.
And I'm sure that that's being looked at, and not only in Nigeria, across Africa. With the AFCFTA initiative, you'd find that there will be a standpoint for the Business Council to deal with the African Union, the Nigerian Business Councils, Lagos Business Councils, and engaging. You'd find that there'll be representatives from most countries there, and there'll be points of contact where you can engage actively with that council.
And then Ghana was very active, I see that, because I see that they signed at least 2 agreements with their Export Promotion Council, as well as the Union of Trade Association. Did we have any group, association in Nigeria sign any agreement there?
We had groups sign, and I particularly tell you that we had companies sign from Nigeria. Woodhull Capital signed an agreement with Africarribean Bank, a trade agreement, a trade facility, a financing facility, where they charged us to identify oil and gas companies, downstream, upstream, that are looking for international funding, who have issues in establishing letters of credit, guarantees. In my own session, there was MRS that signed $150 million financing facility. We had Deji Akinyonji on the agricultural side signing an agricultural financing facility. So yes, not only were we signing MOUs, we were actually, Nigerians were actually there signing actual real transactions. So not just partnerships in theory, we're there on ground signing huge transactions. And I think if you go through the website of what happened last week, you'd find that real money was actually put on the table.
Wow, very interesting and heartwarming there. I trust Nigerians to always make the most of every opportunity.
Exactly. We had representation from Owando, and we were there. We were very, very well represented, and we're active on all the panels. I don't remember any panel where there wasn't an active Nigerian businessman or government official, you know, driving our case and speaking about the opportunities that lie therein in the country.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of what they say. If you go to any country and don't see a Nigerian, just take your leave. That means that place is not livable.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you so much, Mrs. Bojion Wusu. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you success following that meeting that you had at the Barbados.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
All right, so it's good to know that, I mean, the meeting was not just a talk meeting, but a walk meeting. Well, we'll take a break now. When we come back from the break, we'll have the markets waiting for you. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. Time to do an opening call to the market now with Aniti Edits. Aniti?
Yes,
Aniti is happy today. The market, well, would I say rebounded or just came for a breath of fresh air?
Well, just call it a rebound, because that's the first gain that you have just this week.
At 0.11%.
Yeah, 0.11%. So it's mild, but it's still more like a sign of reprieve for the market, because we were asking that, is this market going to go below the 49,000 level, especially when you look at the
you said another green today at the close of trade?
Well, I think I need to rub my crystal ball to see that. But,
I thought
I'm
you would do that before coming.
No, okay.
All right.
But before we do that, let's get straight to the market. 0.11%, like I mentioned earlier, is what the market gained at the close of Thursday's trading session. In Naira terms, that translates to about 28.33 billion Naira. And that's the level at which the market cap closed in Thursday's trading session. Then, interesting to know that the market's gain or rebound was largely driven by 20 equities, particularly the share price of Lafarge Africa, as well as Union Bank and some other mid-cap equities. And then at the same time, nine equities were on the loser's side. Now, let's take a look at the sectoral performance. This is how it turned out. Take a look at the banking counter, which was in the red in the last 3 consecutive sessions. But at the close of the 4th trading session yesterday, it went up by more than 1%. Take a look at the oil and gas sector. It was unchanged, but it's up by 0.37%. So the lone loser there was the consumer goods sector, which fell by just that amount, 0.15%. Over to the activity chart. Let's take a look at. Now, the volume was up by 25.6% in contrast to what you had on Wednesday, but value was in the red. It was down by 8.76%, while the total number of deals carried out was up by 3.33%. So that's it for that market. At the same time, we had the share price of was still on the equities market. So we had MTN being the most traded stock by value, and then Transcorp was the most traded stock by volume. It's traded 30.97 million units. But let's talk to an equity trader at the head of research, market analyst at Meristem Securities, Samuel Bameke. Thank you for joining us, Samuel.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Edith.
Okay. Now, I'm sure you're quite aware that it's a season of annual general meetings as well as earnings forecast, but at the same time, we had one tier 1 lender, UBA, release its half-year unaudited results for this year, and then is also proposing a 20 kobo interim dividend. So what's your reaction to this latest earnings, as well as some other earnings released to the markets?
All right, thank you for having me. Generally, if you look at the banking sector and the banking tickers, if you look at their results for each one, it's been positive, and they've actually been, recording good results in terms of bottom line, and also when you look at top line. For UBA, they recorded the gross earnings growth of 17.99% in H1, and their PAT also grew by 16.10%. Bottom line. And if you look at the performance, what have been driving the performance is that the growth in interest income, and then the growth in also their fees income. For the interest income, it was driven majorly by interest income from loans to corporates. And for the fees income, we see that it was driven by electronic banking income and trade transaction income. And it's a good one. It's a good one for the company, in my opinion. And if you that actually filtered into a positive sentiment for the ticker on the exchange, because in H1 the ticker lost about minus 3.2% in H1. But from July, we've been seeing that positive sentiment, and we are seeing that investors are beginning to gain confidence in the ticker, because that's started to gain, and not only in the ticker, we are seeing improved sentiment across the banking sector on the whole on the exchange.
Okay. Now, I'd like you to tell us what are the stocks, the major movers at the market. Yes, trading is in session right now. Can you tell us the major stocks, who are the movers or maybe the downers, if there's anything like that at the moment?
Okay, so if you look at across sector for the past 2 weeks, we've been seeing we've seen the market close on a positive note. 2 weeks ago, we saw Airtel move the market. Only Airtel moved the market because if you look at other sectoral indices, closed down. Then last week, the performance was broad-based. If you look at all sectors, all sectoral indices closed up except for the insurance ticker. And then if you look at each sector, if you look at the healthcare sector, we saw movement in fixing. If you look at the banking sector, we saw that movement in Fidelity, the movement in Stanbic, the movement in Zenith Bank also. We saw that movement last week, and you agree with me that these banks actually they recorded good result, and then they've been declaring interim dividend. Even UBA also declared interim dividend last week. And then if you look at the consumer goods, we saw the movement in flour mills last week, and also if you look at industrial goods, that movement was also there. When you look at Lafarge, that was WAPCO, which had gained. But actually coming into this week, we are seeing that investors are beginning to take profit on some of these stocks that have gained. WAPCO, Stanbic, Zenith on Monday. On Tuesday, we also saw Zenith, FBNH, and Airtel Africa closing down. And on Wednesday too, we've also seen them closing down, with investors taking profits across these various tickers on the exchange. The market only closed up on Thursday. Closed up by 0.11%, and it was only the consumer goods sector that totally closed down. So talking about tickers that are moving the market, it's been broad-based. You can't really pinpoint any ticker apart from all these stocks that I've mentioned. But generally, you could see that the bears are still in the market. You would say that the bearish sentiment is totally out of the market. Again, given the attractiveness of the fixed income market, if you look at what the fixed income market is doing now, you discover that investors are really attuned towards the fixed income market. Looking at what stocks are doing. The PME held this week, we saw the 364-day instruments moving to about 10%. I mean, that is massive. So you see that investors are trying to actually put their money in the fixed income market, given the macroeconomic realities that we are currently facing right now.
Okay, so thank you for that analysis, Samuel, and then we'll look out for how the market turns out at the close of today's trading session.
Yeah.
So that was Samuel Bameke, Head of Research and Markets Analyst at Meristem Securities. So now that's all for the market, Ini.
From your market, because I have another market.
I forgot. The equities market is my favorite. I always like to talk about it passionately.
I love all markets that make investors smile.
Exactly.
All right, thank you so much, Anite. So we'll head straight to the crypto market now and see how that is doing. Yesterday, we do know that the Fair Grade Index was at 20 for 24 hours later. We see it at 22, and it's still extreme fair. So just slight movements we see in the market, but we do know that it's still not free yet. So investors are still extremely afraid of entering the market. Nobody's talking about buying the dip at this time, unfortunately. Nobody's talking of buying the dip, because some analysts believe that the market is still going lower, it's going to be lower than this, especially when you talk about the price of Bitcoin. But we'll see. And we do have some good news anyway when we look at the market cap for this morning. There you have it. There you have it. Isn't that what's celebrating? We've been longing to see this for a while, but we haven't seen it. at least we have almost 5% up. And then we have the 1 trillion naira, supposed to be $1 trillion. Market cap is back up there. 24 hours is more than 18% up at 83.37. Bitcoin dominance is also positive. Let's see top alts by market cap, all in green, and they're sharing like 3%, 3.95 for BNB, for Cardano 3.32%. For eCash is 6.24% and XRP is 5.37%. Look at the price of Bitcoin there. We're still holding on to that 20,641.01, up more than 7% in 24 hours. We're going into the weekend. We do hope it doesn't change over. If we have 21, wouldn't that be nice, at least for some time? 24 hours volume, 39.54. And we have Rume Ofi joining us now. Hi, Rume. Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
Rume, is the market recovering?
Yes, but I must say that the fact that the US current index.
Okay, I think Rume is breaking up there. We do hope we can get him. Rume, maybe you should call back. You're breaking up a bit there. So there we have the price of Bitcoin at 20,641.02. That's up more than 7%. 24 hours volume, $39.54 billion. Let's look at the next one there. The price of Ethereum, also holding on to that positive sentiment, no matter how small, up 4.78% at 1,707.38. 24-hour volume, 20.62. Yeah, the top gainers, and we all have double digit there. Look at it, 23, more than 17, 13, double digits gains. Yeah, for Raven Coin, OKB, Airweave, Ape, and Bitcoin Gold, all recording positive, double positive in 24 hours. I wonder if this is a sign of good things. It would have been good to hear Rume talk about that. Let's see the top losers there. I think the only double digit there is the USTC. Others are in single digits, but it's still a red. And the NFT hype started yesterday. Wonder how that's affecting the market. Wanted Rume to talk about that, but unfortunately, seems Rume has a little bit of issues with the tech network. But there's always another day. It's a Friday. We'll have a Monday to talk about it and a whole lot more. But that's where we'll say thank you so much for being a part of Business Morning for today and this week. 5 days of great conversations. I learned a whole lot of new things. I do hope that you did also. If you did not, we can start the journey again on Monday, and then we'll have great conversation. That's it for Business Morning. I'll be back at 1:30 with Business Incorporated, where we'll have updates from the world of business. Do join me then. Enjoy the rest of your day.